Matt Mosley, ESPN Central Texas. You can hear him later on this afternoon, the Doomsday Podcast. A whole lot going on with Mosley, and I think we have some more announcements coming soon. But for right now, we'll stick with that. Cowboys insider, longtime writer for the Dallas Morning News. Matt, when you saw the Dallas Cowboys schedule release, what was the first thing that came to your mind when you really had a chance to sink your teeth into it?
Oh, I've been, writing and looking at these things for a long time. So I just kind of immediately look for little trends or patterns or whatever. And I thought that holiday stretch, that really, for this team, which has had used to be, they could be good in November and like horrible in December was really their thing for a lot of years. And so I tend to just focus immediately on those months, like when they have a chance to kind of get rolling and when things could fall apart. Because I think all Cowboys fans kind of look at it that way. And I think that Eagles right before Thanksgiving, followed by Chiefs on Thanksgiving, and then they turn around and play that next Thursday night. That is the meat grinder portion of the schedule. I don't even mind the back-to-back. There's 2 back-to-back road trips. There's the one that involves the Jets, and there's another team in there that's not very good. And then they have a late one with the Commanders and Giants is how they finish off their season. I'm doing all this by memory.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. You're right.
Okay, but I think that right around Thanksgiving, that's tough. That's really tough. I do think there's a shot at opening 5-1 or 4-2. I think, and I almost think you have to. Like if you're not at least 4-2 after those first 6, you're in big, big trouble. So this is a schedule to me that requires early success. There is no slow start available because I think after you get through that first 6, you don't have a lot of spots to make up ground.
Dude, I couldn't agree with you more. I think you've got to have the opportunity to go ahead and do a great job early on, get the ball bouncing your way per se, get your confidence up. And then, because when you get into the teeth of that schedule late, like you said, a time that can in history has been a tough one for the Cowboys, at the Raiders, the Chiefs, you mentioned the Philly game right there, then at the Lions right after the Chiefs on Thanksgiving, then the Vikings. That's another Sunday night football game. Then the Commanders at noon. That's tough. And then you wrap up with the Giants. What do you think about all the national TV games? I'm pretty pumped. You got some Romo in there. You got a lot of Brady. That's exciting. A Buck and Aikman. Great job. We got 2 Monday night games. That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because as a longtime Eagles observer and fan that you are, like after winning a Super Bowl, how funky the schedule can get. And yet, how funny is it that you win you win it all, and then so you're waiting to see who that first game is. It got to be the Commanders, like a team you played in the NFC title game. Is it going to be one of those great matchups? And of course, because it's the Cowboys and because of the ratings they get, it's the 7-10 Cowboys that's opening up the season. So I do find some of those schedules interesting, and that Philly is all over the map. I think one of those teams, maybe it is the Eagles, that they play on 5 different nights.
Yeah, they do.
I think they play every night this season, other than Tuesday and Wednesday. And the only team that comes close that could end up having the same situation, it's the Chargers, and they would have to get a game later in the year, I think, on a Saturday to make that happen. But you win it all, and you get a ton of prime time. Now, it used to be like, in Major League Baseball, every team gets an all-star. Used to the NFL wanted to get every team at least one primetime game, and that's going out the window. And now the Titans, even with Cam Ward, even with some interest there are 3 teams in the NFL that get 0 primetime games. I think the Browns might be one of those. But yeah, all these little trends and things kind of interest me. But you know who has the toughest schedule in all of the NFL? See, I don't. It's hard to say from year to year because we're assuming that all of last year's playoff teams are going to be back, and that usually doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't.
If we're assuming they're the last year's playoff teams, if we're judging our schedule based on that, the Giants have the toughest schedule in the NFL, which seems really unfair, but it's the Giants, so you and I don't care.
Yeah, we don't care at all.
We're fine with them having misery.
How about the Pickens acquisition? This is a guy in the last 3 years, right? Almost 200 receptions. Quite the anecdote, hopefully, right? For the Cowboys and for their passing game and for Dak Prescott. I have a theory on this, Matt, and it's a scary one, that this is a series where Dak could be totally unmasked. Almost like at the end of a Scooby-Doo episode where you rip his mask off and you find out, that it's like Brock Heward or somebody. I think that he can get exposed now because he has the quote-unquote tools that he needs. The offensive line is still a little patchworky, right? It's getting better. The draft, they obviously had an emphasis on that. And again, you correct me because you're the expert. But I am feeling that this could almost be troublesome for Dak because the table is set now for him to have an improved season, right? But what will happen to him this year?
Well, I mean, see, I don't so much think that he gets exposed as like a poor performer as much as, the injury thing seems to hit him so often. And so you really can't run him. And so this one thing that used to be a part of his game, moving around or taking off occasionally, is no longer part of his game. So, but that's interesting. I mean, again, he was not playing well when he got hurt last year. We sort of blame all of last season. People blame that on Dak being injured. And the truth was, he was not good. And They got run out of their own building by the Saints. So, but I mean, I do find it, I think it'll be fascinating because some of the things Pickens does extremely well, which are those deep fades, the vertical routes that you guys used to run at Richmond. There's a lot of stuff that they do. I mean, that's what he's best at doing. And boy, this allows, you can put CD in the slot, kind of do some things with him. The respect you have to give Pickens. I mean, this is an interesting one because they essentially have done what they had to do to try to save that one season a few years ago, which is but that time they had to give up a first round pick, if you'll recall, for Amari Cooper. Now they've given up like a future, a third, and maybe even further down the road, a fifth. So that makes a lot more sense. It just doesn't seem like they had to rip everything up. Now, again, it's always interesting when one fan base is excited and then one fan base is like excited that a guy's gone. You can't help but be like, oh, geez. I mean, like, why do the Steelers hate this guy?
Yeah.
I mean, if he's so good and he's 23, 24 years old, like, that's not a great sign when the whole fan base is very happy he's leaving. So, but I tend to think you don't really hear bad stuff from the teammates. And it really does seem to be like he's just kind of, would get carried away on the field and kind of get in fights. And it was kind of a more on the field stuff. So, and even the Steelers GM came out and said this guy never asked to be traded. So, like, unlike a lot of receivers, I don't think he was begging for a way out. And you got him on the contract year. I mean, this is kind of like perfect. I think people thought, oh my gosh, here's another guy you've got to give a contract to. No, not really. I mean, he's going into his final season, and I mean, it's sink or swim time. He either puts up a great season, and then he'll be a big time free agent, or he struggles. And I think he's going to do fine. So I think overall it was a solid move, and especially given some of the other receivers they looked at, apparently that some of those names came up, and I think this guy maybe has the most upside of any of the people they could have looked at.
Way too early, but I do want to get your prediction. Will the Cowboys be a playoff team?
I think the answer is no. I just, a lot of times I just look on these schedules. Okay, what divisions are they playing? Who's on there? I mean, you yourself mentioned. I mean, it just stinks when Detroit and all those, when you get two conferences that legit, each of them have, or divisions that each of them have three possible playoff teams. I mean, that's a rough place to start. So, I do not think it's likely. But I do think the thing's going to be more entertaining, especially with Pickens involved. And they're trying to get back to having a dominant O-line. I think that this first round pick seems to be solid. I went in there and tried to throw him off a little bit, and I asked, some of the day-to-day media kind of shot me a dirty look.
What did you ask him?
Somehow it came up about, how sensitive everybody is about Micah. And and he was talking about his media training and some of the stuff he'd done. I don't know, but it was like everybody was crowded around him, and I just said something in typical Mosley sarcasm. I just said, "Have you rolled out your podcast yet?" or something. And oh man, he answered it fine, but given all the Micah stuff that everybody's acted like the podcast is too much, and I think it was interesting, the reaction to it, because
Mosley, I think one thing that's underrated about you that people don't celebrate as much as they should is the rascal in you. The rascal in you is always there, and that's very important to have as a personality. I read that in Al Michaels' book. He said you got to respect the rascal. You got to have a little rascal. So I love you, a rascal. Now I do only have you for a finite amount of time, so I want to, you're a DFW guy. By the way, I got to mention one more thing while it's on my mind. To what you said, if you remember Baylor, the Jeff Grimes Baylor, when that was started to fall apart, that they were just tough games to watch, right? Like 2 years ago, they had all those home games. It was a brutal watch, and then they changed things up, right? And it was obviously a better football team, but it was more exciting to watch. I think at the very least, you bring up a great point about the Cowboys. Those were brutal watches last year, and I think it will be a better viewing experience this year, right? For fans. I just wanted to get that one in.